How's up, y'all? What's poppin'? It's D. Watch react to this video by Impressive. This is TYRA Banks gets dragged for being a mean girl. Shout out to everybody on Patreon. This was the second most voted video on my Patreon, so I'm gonna just go ahead and do it. I'll still do the top voted one as well. But yeah, we're gonna see how TYRA Banks getting dragged or whatever. Being a mean girl to who exactly? Let's watch.
Hello everybody, welcome to the Impressive channel. The supermodel TYRA Banks was recently dragged on Twitter after an old clip from her show America's Next Top Model resurfaced online. Now, in
I used to love that show.
TYRA was basically telling one of the contestants on her show named Dani Alexander to close her gap because having a gap is not marketable. Watch this.
Do you really think you can have a cover girl contract with a gap in your room?
Yeah, why not?
This is all people see. Izzy's beautiful cover girl. It's not marketable.
Yeah, just a little bit is okay.
I've seen models with gaps.
Completely close it.
Well, I guess she just left the gap wide open for another girl, baby.
I agree.
Shady.
It's taking me so long to become comfortable with my gap, and so I'm pissed off because I see that you close your gap when you go home. So I gotta suck it up. I gotta bite my lip. I gotta get my
They
gap
made her
closed.
close her gap? I did not know that.
Now, a lot of people were upset when they saw this clip because they felt like TYRA and her judges
How y'all get mad over this old ass show? This happened decades ago.
She had to change the way she looked
What?
to make it in the modeling industry. And even though TYRA and Miss J. Alexander didn't say that verbatim, that was the message they were conveying in that clip. And in the end, Danielle ended up having to get her gap closed. Now, she didn't have it closed all the way, but still, she fell into the pressure of changing her appearance. So when this clip resurfaced on Twitter, people were calling TYRA out. And I understand why they called her out, because TYRA has always been the type to say that she's for women and she's about women's empowerment, but she wasn't empowering those girls on America's Next Top Model. If anything, she was breaking them down. And looking back at it now,
that's why it was entertaining.
TYRA was actually
it was reality TV.
She and her judges and her production team set some of these girls up and criticized them because they knew it would be good for TV. So TYRA was really trying to get ratings for her show. The harsher the criticism, the better. The more drama, the better. This is how reality TV works. And in TYRA's defense, I will say, she did use her platform to help a lot of women jumpstart their careers in modeling. But I don't agree with how she did it. TYRA probably did more damage to these girls than she realized, because a lot of them left America's Next Top Model feeling jaded, discouraged, and mentally broken. A lot of them left the show traumatized. For instance, look at the model Tiffany Richardson and how TYRA Banks basically broke her down on national TV.
I have never in my life yelled at a girl like this. When my woman yells at this, it's because she loves me. I was rooting for you. We were all rooting for you. How dare you? Learn something from this.
Unfortunately for Tiffany, she was not able to get over this, because every time people think about her, they remember her as the girl TYRA yelled at. Another model who was traumatized on the show was Jada Young. Jada Young was pressured to cut her hair into a pixie cut, and it was hard for her to go through with it, but she knew that if she didn't get it cut, she might be eliminated.
It's hair.
She got her hair cut and she had a whole emotional breakdown, and of course her breakdown was exploited for ratings. Not only that, she was pressured to kiss a guy who was racist for a commercial. And that was also very traumatizing. Also, I can't forget another instance where the model Yaya was criticized for being too Afrocentric.
You have this intensity to prove your sort of Africanness, and I think that sometimes it's overbearing. It's just too much. It's sort of a layer on top of a layer. In response to trying to prove myself as an African, that's just where I come from. It's very natural to me.
Right.
But what's not amazing is your appearance. Think a little bit more glamour as opposed to natural, because this is glamorous and this is amazing.
Honestly, I'm still surprised by that scene. I'm surprised that TYRA even allowed that judge to criticize Yaya for embracing her African culture. That's so problematic. That's extremely problematic.
You being too black, calm it down.
Model Gina Turner. Gina actually exposed Tyra and her production team last year for exploiting her struggles with alopecia and also setting her up so the girls in the house could turn against her. Not only that, she talked about the time when Tyra berated her for posing for Playboy magazine, and Tyra did this to get a reaction out of her so her reaction can be filmed on camera.
And Tyra said, yeah, you went from like little girl modeling to like Ba Ba Boom or something like that. And I was like, are you guys referring to Playboy? And they were like, yeah. I was like, yeah, of course. Like, I was like, yeah, I've done Playboy. You know, I did Playboy when I was 18 years old. They knew about Playboy when I was doing Skype interviews from my house before I was guaranteed a cast member. I never kept that a secret.
What's the problem?
She crossed her fucking arms. Tyra Banks crossed her arms and looked at me and said, I don't like that. You sound like a fucking prostitute. And turns and looks this way.
On the show?
And would not make eye contact with me the entire time. And I started bawling. Because I just had the woman that I've idolized my entire life tell me that I sound like a fucking prostitute. And little do you guys know, I grew up in foster care. It seemed on TV, they made it sound on TV like I lost my mom, like she died. My mom didn't die, but I did lose my mom's strength and lose my mom to drug abuse and prostitution when I was a kid. I was put in foster care. I grew up in foster care. I would never repeat the same things that my mom did that put me in the positions and the shit that I dealt with as a kid. So for me, it was so offensive to me that I just started crying. And I had 4 judges at that point, 4 different people yelling different slandering things back to me, basically telling me that I sounded slutty or I sounded whorish or that I was wrong. The only person that didn't bash me was Ashley Graham. And she told me what these people say. She literally put her hand up to Tyra's face. And I'm telling you, when I started bawling, trying to defend myself, Tyra uncrossed her arms and goes, now tell me about alopecia. And that's where you guys see my interviews start. They skip all the Playboy stuff. They skip all the shit that makes me me. And make you guys think I'm a totally different person right off the bat.
So these are examples of how Tyra and her judges and her production team have exploited these women and used certain scenarios to break them down so they could get a good scene for the show. Because as we all know, reality TV is all about drama. So this is what Tyra and her production team were doing. But it was very destructive. And even though Tyra gave a lot of women on the show opportunities, she also played a part in breaking them down. And obviously she did it for television, but I kind of believe that she also broke them down because Tyra herself faced hardships in the industry. Yeah. So in her mind, she probably thought, since she went through hardships and she had to deal with insecurities and being put down in the industry, the other girls have to go through it too. She probably thought this was cake. Like, so what? I'm being nice to y'all. Trying to toughen them up and prepare them for the brutal modeling industry. Now, the model, Danielle, now known as Dani Evans, was criticized by Tyra and her judges for having a gap between her teeth, and she was pressured to close that gap, and in the end, she ended up winning America's Next Top Model. However, the message that was being sent in that episode was problematic because Tyra was basically saying that models have to change their natural looks to fit the beauty standards of the modeling industry. This is fact. And the popular model, Slick Woods, who's actually known for her gap, took up for Danielle and said this: no one should ever talk to you like that, Dani Evans. That episode messed up a little Simone/Slick. So that's how y'all feel, Tyra Banks and Miss J. Alexander? When Dani saw Slick say this, she was encouraged to speak up. And this is what she said about Tyra Banks and America's Next Top Model.
Guys, what's up? It's Dani here. Wow, what a crazy day yesterday with that video going viral. So this video is just to weigh in on everything. I appreciate all of the news outlets that reached out to see if I wanted to comment. I honestly didn't feel it necessary until late last night when I received a message from Slick Woods. Shout out to you, Slick. I knew in that moment, after reading her words, that I have a responsibility to address what really happened and to speak.
This was 30 years ago.
But let me tell you what this video is not. This is not a video to war against anyone. This is not a video to defame anyone's character. And this is not a video to discuss my relationship with TYRA. This is a video for me to speak my truth and to provide clarity and for me to address an issue that was done 15 years ago that carries weight and that clearly affected a lot of young girls in America after watching it. Before I get into the ins and outs of that episode, I want to take you guys back a little bit before we go forward so that everything makes sense and flows cohesively. I did top model listening to the wisdom of Elliot, my brother. Honestly, the greatest wisdom he could have ever given me, even though at the time I thought it was so dumb. He knew I wanted to get out of Little Rock really badly. And he was like, yo, you should do top model just to get out. I was like, I would never in my life do that. It's fake modeling. They humiliate girls. Terrible idea. He was like, yo, just do it to get out. It's a one-way ticket out to New York. Genius. Bingo. We're doing top model. With that being said, I had one goal in mind. The one goal was to get out of my hometown, to create a different, better life for myself. That was it. I wasn't concerned about challenges. I wasn't concerned about the things that would be set up in place to kind of deter me and to knock me off of my game. I was so focused. I wasn't even hungry. I was starved to get out. You need to understand that. Starved. So any and everything, the opposition that came my way, I was so deaf to it because I had a goal. And anyone that stood in my way of getting out of Little Rock was going to get bulldozered over. Period. There were a few things that came up. Like the first one I think was my diction, my dialect, my accent, whatever you want to label it. When I'm filming and I'm in the middle of it, I had no idea that I sounded different than the rest of the girls. I'm like, all right, like how do I fix it? You say I sound weird, how do I fix it? It wasn't until I got off of the show, went back home, and then I watched the show over and I was like, oh, it's just a matter of me enunciating my words. You know what I'm saying? Done, easy, fixed it, moving on to the next. Cut to that particular episode. Let's get into it about the gap. We were all going to the dentist as a whole. Me and Joni went first. We get to the dentist and the guy asked me, do you want to get anything done to your teeth? And I said, yeah, clean me up, whiten my teeth. He repeatedly asked me if I want to close my gap. No, I don't want to close my gap. Push pin, none of this aired on TV. I'm giving you guys the behind the scenes, right? He kept asking me if I wanted to close my gap. Nah, bruh. Super cool. I'm super secure in my gap. Of course, like any other kid. I'd be lying to you if I said I grew up loving my long neck, my jawbone, and my gap. I did not. I hated it all. I used to cry and ask my mother for braces. We couldn't afford braces. What did my mother say to me? She reminded me that my two grandmothers, who I absolutely adored, had gaps. They're queens. You're just like your grandmothers. You know what? I learned to accept and love my gap. So on top model, when they wanted to close it, I was like, nah, fam, I'm good. Cut to, we're now in elimination. So I go forward. Tyra's like, why didn't you get your gap closed? I'm like, huh? She's like, I told you to get your gap closed. I'm like, no, you didn't. She looks off camera right to production, which none of you guys ever see. I look off stage, camera right to production. Kim Mott gives me one of these. In that moment, I knew what was happening. I knew that I was basically set up and not being told that Tyra wants me to get my gap closed so that it's good for TV, right? So in that moment, the 19, 20-year-old Danielle stood there realizing that it was my one-way ticket out on this side or keeping my gap on this side and going back to Little Rock, Arkansas. What do you think I'm gonna choose, fam? So Tyra says to me, if I send you back to the dentist, will you get your gap closed? And I meet her with another question. So what you're saying to me is, if I tell you no, then you're gonna send me home tonight. Me and Tyra went and did that whole fiasco about 2 or 3 times, which you guys saw none of that on TV. What you saw is me coming up with a compromise saying that I'm okay with you closing it some of the way, but not all of the way. Let me explain something to you. The family that I come from, a family of hustlers, a family of go-getters, I was not going to allow something that is physical on my face to stop me from getting out to make a better life for myself. I had a laser-focused goal Nothing or no one was going to stand in my way. And it wasn't about copping out. It was about understanding what really carries weight and holds value in my life, and teeth was not one of them. I wasn't tight because of TYRA's comment about me not being able to model with a gap. I wasn't tight about Miss J's comment about leaving the gap wide open for the next girl. All of that was trivial to me. I've heard it all before. What I was tight about is them trying to play me and making good for TV. However, the me now and reading the comments and understanding the weight that it created in other girls who saw that. This is why this post is being made, because I want to address all of those young girls, because I've been using this time in quarantine to really go back and to love on and to nurture the little Danielle from childhood. So I'm going to take this time to build up and to speak to all of my young queens that saw that episode, that were truly affected by TYRA's words. I want to speak to you right now. You're beautiful. And I'm not talking about a physical feature. It doesn't matter if you have a gap, stacked teeth, straight teeth. It matters not. It doesn't matter if you're black, brown, white, indifferent, other. It doesn't matter. What makes you beautiful is in here. It's a matter of your self-worth, high self-worth or low self-worth. And no one can establish that except you. So I'm speaking to all the little girls. And if I could love on all of you right now, I would. I want to remind you of your worth. You're a masterpiece. You were so loved.
I'm head out. I'm sorry. I gotta stop. So, just what's going through my head while watching this is that this was 50 years ago. This was so long ago. Things change over time. Things become more acceptable. Things become a bit less harsh in certain industries as time passes. And I honestly feel like 15 years ago, what TYRA was stating is facts. Like, they don't want you on their commercials and you got a big ass gap in your mouth. Like, I don't think she was saying anything wrong. Now, yes, there are so many models with gaps in their mouth, but 15 years ago, can you really say that there were a lot? There probably was a couple. But I don't feel like that was a thing. I don't recall seeing models with gaps in their mouth and, you know, magazines and on TV and shit. Now I see them all the time, but back then I don't think it was a thing. So I don't know why they dragging her for this old ass clip. People are running out of things to cancel people for that's going on right now. So you start pulling up old clips from 15 years ago and you want to cancel people and drag people for shit that happened 15. What? Like, and it's not even like she was like, you ain't shit, you ugly, you got a gap in your mouth, die. Like, it's not even like she was going super in on this girl. Like, I just think it's so unnecessary for her to even come back and address this. And I don't believe her for a fucking second talking about, oh yeah, I was like, oh, why would I go on that show? She just exploits young girls. That I don't think he was saying that. Fuck out of here. Because back a long time ago, Top Model was a thing. It was huge and everybody wanted to be on Top Model. So you telling me your 19-year-old self was like, that exploits young women and I don't think I would. I think you were excited to be on Top Model and you wanted to be a model and you felt like that would get you to the next level. So you telling me that, oh, I just wanted to get out of Arkansas. Like, girl, shut up. I don't believe that. So it's like, it kind of negates everything else she's saying because you're already lying right there. I don't believe that. I don't believe that. People are saying that now. Current day, they're saying Top Model exploited women and it was terrible and it wasn't really, it was a reality show. It wasn't really to, you know, get models out there. I hear that now. I never heard that, not once back then when I was young watching this, like ever. I never heard that not one time. So for you to say that that's what you were thinking and you were 19 years old, it's like, girl, shut up. I don't believe that. I don't believe that for a second. So, I mean, I'm not trying to go in on these people, but I just feel like it's just unfortunate that people want to drag people for, you know, shit that happened 15 years ago. And if she was saying some racist shit or, you know, going in on her and being super disgustingly nasty and saying, you piece of shit, you did it up, that would be something else. Like, damn, TYRA. But she literally just told the girl what she knew about the model industry, that they're not really accepting of people who got gaps. You're not really marketable. You're not going to be in commercials looking like this. Like, what's the problem? What the fuck is the problem? I'm just tired of people. I don't agree with her getting dragged. Y'all let me know what y'all thought, though. Let me know what other videos you want me to react to, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.